Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good Stuff. It's great to have you today. As always, we appreciate you listening. Just a reminder to head on over to YouTube to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and anytime on social media. I hope you're liking the new format. It's been good to hear from some of you in regards to the post and everything on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I got to give a shout out here to my guy Laverne, who just made the new Good Stuff sign. So we really do appreciate him doing that. Man, I'm ecstatic today for our guest, Bob Starkey, assistant women's basketball coach at Texas A&M. Coach, it's great to have you on the show.
Tickled to death to be here, Kevin. Looking forward to it.
So how's things going for you guys down there right now with everything? Obviously, you're a little bit farther away than Ohio. So what's things like in Texas and just for the program right now going through everything?
Well, certainly it's a lot different. Usually this time of the year, our kids are in summer school, and we've got weight workouts in the morning, and we got player development workouts in the afternoon. Of course, this is July, so a part of July has us out on the road recruiting, and of course, none of that's available right now. We're all in COVID mode, so we have the large majority of our players are here on campus, and they're obviously taking classes virtually. They're allowed to get in the weight room. But that's not mandatory. That's voluntary, and certainly there's some guidelines they have to follow. We're not allowed to be in there, but they have that opportunity. Right now, they're not even allowed to get in the gym, and we're looking to hopefully create some measures that would allow small groups of them to get into the gym. And I think that's really important, not just for ability to get up shots and work on their skill, but just for their mental health. I mean, when you take something away from somebody that they love to do for this long period of time, it can affect them a little bit. And then you and I were talking earlier, in between doing this Zoom, I've been watching AAU games live streaming, and that's kind of the new normal. There's some really good events and good players out there, and we dial in and watch them and evaluate them. And but it's a different spring that I think we could ever imagine. One of the things I think that's really important, I heard Bob Knight say this at a clinic long time ago, that the greatest thing a coach can have is an imagination.
That's good. Yeah.
Oh, look what you've been able to do with your YouTube channel and these Zoom activities. And it's just really stretched a lot of us. I'm really proud of our profession. So many Zoom clinics. We brought in some amazing speakers to speak to our team on Zoom. We're doing a lot of team things on Zoom, and I think it's stretched us in a good way. And certainly, We're looking forward to get back to one-on-one and face-to-face meetings and all that stuff. But some good things have come from this.
Well, I know you've been coaching a while here now, and so you got a lot of wisdom to share with us today. I gotta put in there that I did have Larry Scheid on here before. I see him; he's like the defensive genius on the men's side. You're like the defensive genius on the women's side here. So this is good, and I want to start, Bob, by just congratulating you, on your induction as Step Up Assistant Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame. I know that happened back in March, so nice honor for you in your career.
Yeah, it means a lot. First of all, for a step up to create a Hall of Fame for that position, because there are some people who've dedicated their lives to being assistant coach, and it's a specific type of job that takes the right person to do it for a long period of time. So I'm really appreciative of them to create it. And gosh, there's some amazing people that went in the first class last year in this class, but it's nice to be recognized. But I am absolutely the product of working for some amazing head coaches and some outstanding student athletes. I don't think anybody goes into a Hall of Fame by themselves. There's a lot of people that are involved, and I've been really blessed.
That's great. Well, hey, you started just looking at your path a little bit, as we were just talking about West Virginia State and Marshall, and then taking your assistant coaching role to LSU, which I'd love to get to a little bit later. And then it looks like, that year that you spent as administrative assistant and then transferred into the women's game. So you're on the men's side and then went into the women's game. Talk to us a little bit about, all of that and just why the switch. I'd be curious to know.
Well, there's actually a great story there. Well, I started out coaching high school basketball in West Virginia. And at that time, the girls played in the fall and the boys played in the winter. So I started off in high school coaching both.
Wow. Okay.
So my first college job was at West Virginia State College on the men's side. Still my favorite job. Just had some amazing kids there. And then I had an opportunity to go to Marshall University on the women's side. So already shifting back and forth, and then Dale Brown came calling, and went to work for Dale and worked with him up until he retired. Took a year as administrative assistant, and Sue Gunner offered me a spot on her staff, and I stayed on the women's side since then. But even at my very first beginnings in coaching, I was coaching girls and boys in high school at the same time.
Wow! I didn't realize that took place. What would you say? You mentioned even earlier, we just talked about the Hall of Fame, being around some coaches, some really good ones, or great ones, if you will. What would you say are some of the characteristics that stick out to you in all these years? Whether it's just not only the ones that you've worked for, but maybe even gone against in competition. Is there something that, if I'm listening as a leader, regardless of what that is there something that, hey, this is a characteristic I got to have in order to be great?
The number one characteristic of the best people I've worked for, and that I know about, is that they genuinely care about those people involved in their programs, above and beyond. Above and beyond. They don't care about a person because they can knock a jump shot down, or they grab 10 rebounds a game. They genuinely want to be part of their growth, and that they work to do that. The second thing I would say is they're incredibly genuine. I mean, every coach I've worked for, their personality is absolutely different. So, one of my mentors, Don Meyer, used to have this thing: "Be who you is, because if you is who you ain't who you is." And it's just a neat way of saying, be yourself. We can certainly learn from others, but you still have to be who you are. And so, the people I've worked for have had distinct personalities, different ways to do things, but at the same time, they were themselves. They weren't trying to copy somebody or mimic somebody. One of the things that's fascinating is, I'm a big Bill Belichick fan, or when I was at LSU, Nick Saban was the football coach there. And these guys have turned out some great assistant coaches who become head coaches. And sometimes I think maybe they try too hard to be like their mentor, the person they work for, and you can't duplicate somebody. You've been in it long enough. Look how many people tried to replace John Wooden at UCLA, or Dean Smith at North Carolina, Coach Summit at Tennessee. You have to care about your kids, and you have to be yourself, and then you can branch out in the other areas.
Right, for sure. Well, hey, you brought up Don Meyer, so I just want to follow that up while we're on it, because I was going to touch base with it later. I mean, what a lasting impact he made on the game. What was so unique or special about him? Is it kind of what you already alluded to with that, just being so genuine, or was there other things that also separated him?
Well, he had an unbelievable passion to teach people how to teach. You saw it with his free clinics, his coaching academy. He loved to coach coaches. Certainly he was obviously an outstanding teacher and coach with his players, but it meant so much to him to be able to impact coaches. And in my lifetime, I don't think there's been anybody more impactful. He's impacted junior high coaches, high school coaches, college coaches, pro coaches, on the men's side, on the women's side, major Division I college, Division II. I mean, there just hasn't been an area that he didn't impact, and he did it through the people that teach. And I think that's why he's going to have an incredibly long-lasting legacy. But he loved to teach the teachers.
Yeah, so good. So, what are some characteristics, I guess, on the flip side of that? What are some things that you see are hurting leaders? What are they not doing well? What are things that are just not allowing them to reach, the potential that they could?
I think for a lot of young coaches, they may not be getting the game for the right reason. Uh,
Mm,
they see large financial contracts and courtesy cars and all these
hmm
kinds of things. And I could share, some really great stories about being poor when I started out. And you have to be in it for the right reason. I think when you find somebody that coaches for a long period of time, you know that they've done it because of relationships and they care about helping young people grow. If that's not why you're in it, then you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you know in terms of X's and O's and how great a recruiter you are. If you're not going to genuinely care about the people you're around, you're affecting, the job will eat you up. It'll eat you up.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Coach, because I remember my first job out of college and making in the teens, and I'm sure that you were less, being 15, 20 years ahead of me, but being in my car nonstop and getting home at 12 or 1 and getting up and doing it all over again, 6 or 7, living in the one-bedroom apartment, and that was a a great job.
I was getting ready to
That
say,
was a
you
lot of
loved it,
fun.
didn't you? Yeah,
Loved
you
it. I
loved it.
was
There you
happy as a
go.
pig in mud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just changing gears, I guess maybe little slightly habits. I'm just so big on habits. Are there certain habits that you think successful coaches have?
Absolutely. And I think the most successful coaches I've been around are people of great routine.
Mm,
They get up in the morning and they have a set amount of things that they want to do. You got to win the morning. Before you win the
mhm,
day, you got to win the morning. Then you go through the day, and one of the things I've got from Buzz Williams here is he has what's called a nighttime audit. So before he goes to bed, he has a series of 8 questions that he asks himself, so he can go back and review what he did for the day to see if he won the day.
mhm.
Uh, but I do think you have a routine is very good, and I don't want to make that sound like regimentation, but I
Right.
do think routine's important. There's certain things that you need to do. The other thing that I think is important is to make sure you have to understand what's most important. If you're out there doing a lot of things, you're really not doing anything. You have to understand the priorities within your program and with you in your job. And those are things that you need to start with first in the morning.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
good. I need to know how
yeah,
to do that now when I got a puppy because that's killing my morning routine.
let me tell you something. That's a great routine, though. That's a stress reliever right there, man.
Well, it depends on the morning, but what do you feel is the most important skill that a leader should have, and why?
uh, to me, and it's funny that you brought this up because I kind of alluded to it on my Twitter account this morning. But I think it's critically important that leaders know what they don't know, that they're continual learners. If you're a leader, you don't ever get there. You don't ever arrive. It's ongoing, and it's not just with the technical part. It's just not about learning a different way to execute a pick and roll or
Right.
to trap in the press. It's learning different ways to connect with the people that you're involved with. I mean, this is a different generation we're dealing with.
Hmm.
And by the way, every generation's different.
Yeah.
One of the
Right.
things
Right.
Buzz talks about this all the time. Don't be that coach that complains about this generation, because by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way, when you were playing, somebody was complaining about your generation. But it's just there's different ways that you communicate with people today, and if you're not constantly learning and seeking out new ways, then I think it's really
Hmm.
really difficult for you to be successful.
I'm sure in a lot of these answers you've already alluded to this a little bit, but is there certain lessons that coaching has just taught you over time that stick out? I mean, once again, you've probably mentioned one or two already. Is there anything else that you can think of, throughout your career?
The most important thing that I've learned is that my impact on people is far greater than I originally thought. When
Mm,
I was
that's good.
young, I was an X and O guy. I want to be able to
Yep.
teach. I want to be able to scout. Now it's so much more important for me to connect. And the thing I'm probably most proudest of in terms of my career are the relationships that I have with my players after they leave. And
Hmm.
that's something that early on I didn't know about, nor was I expecting. But as I learned from people, and nobody taught me that better than Dale Brown at LSU. I mean, he's an outside of the box guy, and there's so many great stories involving him in that regard. Uh, but until I realized that, it was something I didn't know about, and now it means everything to me.
Yeah, I just to interject here, I think it's so crucial for any leader listening. I don't know about you, Bob. When I first started, it's not that I didn't care about the individuals I was coaching. I cared, but I don't know if they knew I cared.
Yeah.
I think there's a shift in yourself as a coach when you are putting a lot of time, energy, effort into that, and they can understand and know that. Whether it's, hey, I'm bringing you in the office today, and all we're doing is talking hoops. I thought I cared, but bring them in sometime and talk about their life and their family and their girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever else is going on. I think that can really change people in leadership positions.
Well, and here's the kicker. uh, Doing that, having those non-basketball conversations. Like I like to grab a kid and go get a cup of coffee or a sandwich at lunch, or have them over to the house for dinner. that leads to better teaching because once they know you care, they're going to be so much more open to your knowledge. And again, more and more important with this generation. This generation they're a little tough to crack. You really got to earn their trust and respect. But you are 100% point on with that analogy. It's really important.
Yeah, and I thought by like, man, sometimes I'm very transparent to a fault, I guess sometimes, but it's like, man, what more does this kid want out of me? I'm telling him everything, his role, but here the underlying thing was there. He just didn't know. So yeah, it's a great point. I'm curious to know, I guess, what would you now tell 18-year-old Bob Starkey? What if he was sitting here today, is there one thing you wish he would have known then that you know now?
Probably the most important thing would be that it's going to be worth it, because it was tough early on. My first job on the NAIA level, I made $6,000. I lived in a dorm and got a meal card, and we went 18-10, which was an improvement from the year before I came. They were 4-21. And the athletic director calls me in the office. He said, "I hate to do this. NAIA school, we got budget cuts. I got to take your salary from 6,000 to 4,000. We can't afford a meal card." So we then go from 18-10 to 26-6. And athletic director calls me in again, says, "Coach, this is killing me, but I got to drop your salary down to 2,000. We can't afford to pay for your dorm." So I literally move into the office because I had to have a place to stay. And we go 31-4, and we're national runner-ups. And Lord, I went and took a job at Marshall. I was making $18,000, and I thought I hit the lottery. But there's summers of throwing all your gear in your car and driving around and working 9 summer camps, and there were some tough times there. I had no idea that I'd be able to have the type of life that I had. So the big thing is just keep grinding, keep working. If you keep doing things for the right reason, it's going to work out. And I think sometimes people quit a little. There's a great book with a great story called 3 Feet from Gold. I don't know if you've ever read this book. It's an excellent book. It's about a guy who bought a gold mine, and he dug and dug and dug and dug, and he's trying to find a mine with gold in Colorado. It's absolutely a true story, and couldn't find it. Went bankrupt. Finally sold the mine. Moved back to New York. Sold it to some old prospector for a few bucks. The old miner goes in there, 3 feet, boom, becomes the richest guy in Colorado. And sometimes we don't realize how close we are to mining that gold. We just got to keep digging.
Yeah, I've seen that picture, the guy up top and the guy below digging, kind of is that, yeah, okay.
That's
yeah,
it.
Good. And I guess one thing you might want to, if you had to go back to 18-year-old Bob, you might tell him, keep the dorm and the food cart, because that was worth more than the salary probably, right?
Ain't the truth, absolutely.
What's the biggest, now you've been a part of so many successful teams, in Final Four runs and all these coaches, like what's the biggest factor that helped these teams that you were a part of become successful? Was there, or what in general are the keys to building a winning team, whether that's in business or athletics?
Well, I think creating a culture, number one's creating that culture of whatever it is you want your culture to be. The programs I'm involved with wanted to be about hard work, wanted to be about togetherness. And then the second thing is you have to fight for that culture every day. Culture is another thing that you don't create it and it's there. You've got to fight for it every day. You got to recruit and bring people in that want to be a part of that culture. And again, culture's different things at different places, but you have to have some standards that your program is going to relate to, and you got to hold people accountable for meeting those standards. And there's a lot of different ways. I tell this story all the time. The most important lesson I've ever learned as a coach. My junior high coach was a Bob Knight guy. I mean, we played man-to-man defense, motion offense. We even had candy stripe warm-up pants like the old Hoosiers team. Swear to goodness. And when I got out and started coaching, my junior high coach, who by that time was a high school coach, this when we're in West Virginia, we would go to Bloomington every year and watch Indiana practice over a weekend. And it was amazing. Just if you love basketball and you love to teach it, they would come out. All the coaches were dressed alike. They had 10 managers with white T-shirts, say Indiana basketball, red shorts that said Hoosier basketball, had 2 people filming, 3 people keeping stats, managers towel here, ball underneath the arm. They start out with pre-practice, with position work teaching. After about 25 minutes, Knight whistles them, calls them into the locker room. They go over them, stay, come back out. Then it's part method, whole method, part method, whole method. And I'm sitting there, as a 19, 20-year-old guy, and I'm thinking, everybody should be made to come here and learn how to teach the game.
Yeah.
And about the fourth or fifth year, Knight canceled practice on Sunday. So on the way back to West Virginia, we stopped by and we watched Louisville practice. And we get there and they got one manager. He's wearing a heavy metal sweatshirt. They got an assistant coach in the corner smoking a cigar. And they do 2-line layups for a little bit, and then they scrimmage. And literally 2.5 weeks later, Louisville and Indiana opened the season in Bloomington, and Louisville won by 19. And so the lesson I learned there is there's a lot of different ways to coach. And certainly that wasn't a normal Denny Crum practice. But on Denny's toughest days, they weren't going to be like Indiana's. Nice motion, man-to-man. They don't switch. Crum switching all screens, 2-2-1 press. UCLA high post offense. I mean, absolutely completely different. Both of them national championship coaches, both of them Hall of Famers.
Yeah, right.
And you just see that a lot, I think, in life and business and sports. There's a lot of different ways to do what you do. But the common denominator is doing what you do as well as you can and having a culture that allows your players to work. And I think this is really important now. Kevin, I think you got to have a culture that allows kids and teams to make mistakes. I think kids process mistakes a lot different than when you and I were playing. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I hope the one point that people picked up on what you said, Bob, that I see can be an issue is fighting for that culture every day. It's not a sometime thing, it's an all-time thing. And so what's the secret then through pushing through bad times? There's dealing with failure, adversity. We all deal with it, regardless of what we are doing in our life, whether that's me as a husband, a parent, and what I do in my role now as a coach, whatever it might be. What are some things that you can give some listeners to push through those tough times that have been crucial for you guys?
Well, I think the first thing is just attitude. And I think your culture has to not only understand that adversity is coming, but they have to embrace it. You and I got to listen to Tim Kite. He's talking about E plus R equals O. And that's basically what that's saying is there's going to be an event, there's going to be a response, and that's going to create the outcome. The one thing I learned from Dale Brown is the absolute greatest power that we all have as human beings is our ability to choose our own attitude regardless of the circumstances. Now, I'm not saying that's an easy thing to learn, but once you learn that, and here's the thing, adversity creates opportunities for growth. That's got to be, your mindset. One of the things we shared with our team is that poor companies, they're going to struggle during adversity. Good companies are going to survive. Great companies are going to grow. So what are we going to learn from this? How's it going to make us better? And the big thing is just know it's going to happen. If you're a leader, the worst thing you can do is act like you're surprised when something bad happens.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Hey, no big deal. Thought this might happen. Here's the way we're going to respond. But your attitude's everything. I really believe that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Now I know you even mentioned or alluded to it here a little bit earlier. Just never arriving, which I subscribe to that. So, what are some ways? And I probably know this answer. Just we'll get to the blog here in a little bit, but just seeing your post and talking to people that know you. What are some ways that you're growing and you're trying to continually get better?
Well, the first thing obviously is I'm a voracious reader. I absolutely love to read. I got 3 books going at one time. I got a book here in my office, and I'll take breaks in my office to read this book. I've got one by my chair at home, and I don't want to gross anybody out, but I keep one in the bathroom. So I got 3 books going at one time. And that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is this time that we live in, Kevin's incredible. Free podcasts are out there from some amazing people. YouTube, there's so many things speakers you can listen to, topics you can find, again, free. When I was growing up, if you wanted to learn about coaching basketball, you went to a Converse clinic and you bought videos and books. And there's so much. We talked to our kids about this week. Who are you following on social media? You know, Tim Kite, Buzz Williams, Mike Dunlap. I mean, there's people out there that you need to be following. Who is feeding you?
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
again, and then the other thing is there's been so many Zoom clinics, and
Yeah.
some people have done. There's been some amazing speakers speak for nothing, and I've learned more this spring than I think I ever have in coaching because of the free time we've had to do that. But there's just a lot of free stuff out there.
Yeah.
We tell our players this all the time. You know, Google, go to YouTube. There's so much stuff out there.
Yeah. Well, hey, get those players on the Good Stuff channel. How about that? Hey,
Done.
I gotta ask though, just from a personal. I mean, do you have any good Shaq stories, or you were at LSU when he was there?
Uh,
Anything that just comes to mind, or anything to share? But honestly, Bob, him or Seimone Augustus or Sylvia Fowles, these are just elite athletes. We talked about coaches earlier, but anything that just sticks out to them, or anything funny in general, maybe.
uh, Shaquille was funny on a daily basis. You know, you see him on the set of NBA games, and that's exactly who Shaquille was. He was just a good natured guy with a good sense of humor. You know, he's a 3.0 student, was a great student. One of my favorite stories about Shaquille, and we share this with our players, is we had another 7-footer on our team that
Hmm.
was struggling, and he was coming off the bench. Shaquille was starting. Shaquille came in our staff meeting and said, "Hey, coach, it may help this kid if you start him and bring me off the bench."
Wow.
Now, how many players are
Yep.
willing to put the team and their teammate in front of them like that? You know, when most everybody's they're struggling and battling for a few extra minutes, but that's the kind of guy Shaquille was. He was a great teammate, had a great work ethic, played for the right guy, Dale Brown, who let him be him, didn't stifle his sense of humor or anything like that. He absolutely still supports that university incredibly. They have a champs program for student athletes, and it's named after Shaquille because he funds it.
That's great.
Simone to me was the closest thing I had to coaching Michael Jordan in
Mm.
terms of her competitiveness. This was a kid who wanted to win every drill. This was a kid who was always hunting a game. She played pickup in the summer with our team, and then she'd go across town and play with the guys. She knew the NBA play, the old school. She could talk to you about the '69 Knicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from her dad. I mean, she was obsessed with being great. The only problem we had with Simone is we couldn't get her to shoot enough. She was so caught up in trying to involve her teammates and not look like somebody, who needed to get a lot of shots up. Sylvia was a great story too because she's driven. All these great ones are very very passionate about being great. That none of these players do just enough to get by. All of them are doing extra. The thing that we've talked to our kids about is please follow Simone and Sylvia on social media and see what they've been doing these last 3 months to work out and stay in shape. Don't have an individual coach setting up
Right.
gyms in their home. They're
And that's
just
coming and that's coming intrinsically, I'm assuming, right, Bob?
no
I mean,
question.
that's not right. That's not
Yes.
extra drivers. That's something for I think people to understand, because that's something I see has changed. It's
Yeah.
they're self-starting, and somebody's not starting for them, if you will, or getting them going.
And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we do. One of the things that I enjoy doing is helping kids find a why. I've had conversation with every one of those kids, and I've said the same thing. If basketball is your why, you're going to burn out pretty quick. There's got to be some bigger thing that you want to be involved in that basketball can take. Basketball is simply a tool to get you to someplace greater. And by the way, all those kids have gotten involved in charities,
Right.
have been active with platforms, and have used basketball in a very positive way.
Well, that's awesome. Well, hey, we're going to wrap up here with somewhat of a rapid fire, but if it takes you a little longer, that's fine. We just call this 3-pointers. So I'm going to dish it off to you and let you hoist up a couple here right now. Number one, if people could take, just one thing from this talk and grab hold on to it, what would you want that one thing to be?
That your ability to impact young people makes this one of the most important professions there are.
Yeah, amen. Number two, if you could step into my shoes and ask you a question today, what question would have you asked yourself that I did not ask you?
What's the best piece of advice you got early on?
That's
And it
good.
came from my junior high
Yeah.
coach. I was leaving, had packed up my little Subaru station wagon to go to LSU, and I said, "Give me something. Give me something." He said, "Be the assistant coach that you would want if you were the head coach."
It's
I think
good.
about it every day.
Yeah, that's good. It's really, really good. Well, hey, and finally, good stuff is just kind of the name of this. So, what's some good stuff you can give us in closing? Anything that you feel is appropriate for this time?
Uh, I think I would circle back to what we first started about, and use your imagination. It's real easy with everything that's going on in the country and in the world to feel down or feel sad or feel discouraged. And in actuality, it's a great opportunity for you to do something for yourself and for others, and we need to take advantage of that.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. I guess in closing, Bob, just what are some ways that people could touch base with you? Whether it's social media, I'd love for you just to inject some input or information on your blog right now. I've used that numerous times. I think it's back 2008, maybe. Is that when it first started?
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, I
Good.
thought. Well, I think
Good.
I saw that. But man, I've used it a ton, so I love it. I appreciate you doing that. But just some ways that people can connect with you, please.
Well, the blog is hoopthoughts.blogspot.com. Obviously, there's a lot of X's and O stuff on there, but there's also teaching and leadership and team building. I don't want to take a lot of credit for it because a lot of it is ideas that I've gotten from talking to other coaches or reading books or going to clinics. But it's a great reference, I think, especially for young coaches. My Twitter handles Coach Bob Starkey, Starkey. As you know, I love to share as much as I can
Hmm.
on Twitter. And then people can email me, rstarkey, Starkey, at athletics.tamu.edu.
Got it. Well, hey, I appreciate you just taking the time to be here today, and I definitely appreciate all you've done and are continuing to do for the sport, Bob. It's been great connecting. I wish you nothing but success, and hopefully you guys are out there playing this year, and I'm gonna hopefully get down there even at the College Station as we talked about sometime. But thanks so much for being here today. This is definitely going to help people out.
Well, thanks for having me. And while I'm sitting here, thank you for what you do. I mean, here you are providing a service that we've been talking about. It's one of the most important things we do as coaches is help other coaches, and I appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much. Well, hey, everybody, thanks again for joining us here on Good Stuff. A lot of in here today that you can take and apply to your life. Look forward to hearing how it's going to help you, individually in any role that that might be. So, until next time, good stuff.